Good morning, this is Tom Aspray with the Viper Report. In today's video, I want to follow up on my discussions of the Tom Jerry AI Watchlist that were released last summer. We've got lots of commentary, lots of questions, so I hope to answer some of those questions today and in future videos to show you how they can be useful and how you can apply them to your investing and trading. We'll discuss the rationale of the reports as well as some recent examples focusing on XLK, which had a dramatic move from the November 23 lows into 2024 that could have made your day or your week or your month in investing. For a number of years, we provided a report every weekend, the Viper ETF target list. Here's one from October 22nd, 2021. We provided a list of the 120 roughly ETFs that I follow and giving them whether they closed above or below their quarterly pivot. So ARKG, colored pink, was below its quarterly pivot, while ARKK was above it. You can see less than a month later that had changed. Both had dropped below their quarterly pivots, and ARKK was about $10 lower than what it was the prior month. As many of you probably read, and if not, you can follow up, there was some really strong warning signals from the high-low analysis in late 2021, and particularly in the NASDAQ composite. And I wrote an article here January 9th about how low tech can go, because the weekly studies were very negative. It turns out I was not bearish enough because they went below my targets. By February 11th, you'll note that only 29% of the ETFs were now above their quarterly pivot. The quarterly pivot analysis I had designed or was focusing on because I hoped that they would provide another confirming indicator to my AD line analysis and better serve both the short and the medium term timing. Well, my colleague and former student, Jerry A., took all this in, as he has with everything he's accomplished, I think, and built up a whole new watch list. He created these market gauges with the help of Scott Corwin, who can be found at Fiverr. If you ever need anything done in Excel, I didn't, frankly, even know that Excel could do this, and Scott can pretty much program anything. So, I'd be surprised if anything stumped him. But in any case, this market gauge shows that, as of October 23, 2023, only 15.3% were above their quarterly pivots. Okay? By early November, that improved slightly. Now 21% were above their quarterly pivots. So there were some signs of green emerging in the market. And a few days later, the advanced decline line analysis did flip back to positive. So this is an in-depth look at the November 11th, 1 week later. And you can see that the information had up to 83.3 at that point. Here's what we provide. The quarterly pivot, okay? Light green means it's just moved up above it. Solid green means it's already above it. Red means it's below it. So as of this date, only Cisco and Texas Instruments were below their quarterly pivots. They both had negative weekly DTS signals as well as 3-day signals. We also provide the daily and the 4-hour and the 1-hour. So what is a DTS signal? It was designed and developed, created by Jerry, and essentially it looks at the price behavior and adapts to the market actions. That's where the AI comes into to generate, a price level that will either flip it to positive or flip it to negative. As you can imagine, over the years I've seen a number of attempts to do this, but nothing quite like Jerry's. So I'm really impressed. You can see in this report, that, for example, Intuit, had closed above its pivot, also generated a weekly as well as a 3-day. Jerry was pointed out to me about the 3-day signals, which I frankly hadn't thought of, but I'm convinced. and also it was already positive, on the DTS in the 4-hour. Typically, what we will see is if it's something like here for Cisco, it was positive on the 1-hour. So I'll be looking to see if it can turn positive here in the 4-hour and the DTS. That will increase the probabilities that we'll get a 3-hour, which will be a stronger buy signal. We also provide the volume analysis, so if it's highlighted in green, the volume, is above average. So a couple weeks later, you can see that at that point, 64.8% of the ETFs were back above their quarterly pivots from just 15% in October. So here's a chart of Intuit from Stock Charts, and it can show you that right in here, this is when the weekly and the 3-day DTS had flipped positive. A couple days later, we broke out above this downtrend here, completing this trading range. If you look at, hopefully you can, about chart projections. So roughly, say 456 to 472, roughly a 84 point addition. You add that into 540 and you get 620. Well, we're already above that level. We made a 630 high up here, currently around 641. You'll note that these positive signals from the DTS dovetails nicely with a positive RS as well as a positive OBV. So we transport this into the XLK. This is a daily chart of the XLK. It formed, lower highs and lower lows, but not the indicators. We were seeing very strong bullish divergences here, and we don't often wait necessarily for the DTS signals. I think our investors are long from right around in here, and traders have been in and out, but you can see that, certainly by this bar here, it was everything in go for XLK. And the relative performance, once again, like I did at the start of 2023, showed that XLK was a market leader. So here's how it looks. So here's a look at the TOS chart from Jerry, going back to early 2023. You can see that it flipped to positive here in March after the end of this correction here. It started off the year positive. And on this chart you have in green, you have the stop placement. So the weekly DTS would stay positive until we closed below that level. Up here you can see it warned that we were up above the current weekly Stark bands, so stretched, high risk buy up in here, low risk sell. Sure enough, we got a pullback. In July, there were signs from the AD lines that, we were topping out. We got a stop out signal here, and then we were pretty much in the corrective mode based on the AD line analysis. Tried to turn a couple of times, but never really broke its downtrend into, the November of 2023, where it flipped back to positive here, and it's been positive ever since. So you can hear these purple lines, are the quarterly pivots, and then we have quarterly pivot, resistance levels ahead, so at R1 and R2, and you can see we have a new pivot now at 181.89, and we're getting up towards the top of the upper trading channel with a high recently of 206. If you look at the daily chart, you can see last November's early buy signal here, moved in here, stopped out at base of the daily. We closed below this stop here, flipped back. So normally I don't, I try to place my stops on even for traders so we won't get hooked out on this. Another nice move into December. Saw that one coming too as well. Took some profits a little early up in here, and then maintained the long, and we're still long those positions because we flipped back to positive here and are still positive as it soars to the upside. In blue here, we have the 20-period EMA, which most of you know I follow really closely. When it turns yellow, it means it's declining, and when it's rising, it's blue. A really nice feature to be able to have. So I've been tracking the percentage bullish, that is the number of XLK stocks above their quarterly pivots. I just put these together manually. December 1, 91.7, pretty strong reading. We were at 185 and change. Next week, same reading. We'd moved up tiny amount. December, we'd pull back a little bit, but that didn't stop the XLK. We were up to 191. No, December 22nd, 90.9, 83.3. We're still holding the 192 area. That weakness I discussed earlier, so we saw a pullback here, held right in that 41.7% level, and we dropped down to 184, which is another, pretty. It was that week, the first week of the year, was a pretty sharp correction, but turned around immediately. As of last week, it was 91.7, and we were at 100. As you saw before, we now have had a high of 206. So by monitoring these changes, and I do provide them in my reports on an ongoing basis, you can really see a change in trend. So we're watching a number of the sectors right now, and some are close to turning positive, just like XLK and XLC did, last fall. If you do not have a copy of the sector report, you can email us at tom@viperreport.com with Sector Watch in the subject line. And of course, if you want to subscribe to either the Viper ETF or the Viper Hot Stocks Report, you can go to theviperreport.com and sign up. If you want to be sure you don't miss next week's video and a continuation, sign on by YouTube as a subscriber and you'll get immediate notification. Thank you very much for tuning in.